I did not participate in the last general election by choice because other than the BBI marriage that was crafted by Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, there was nothing that was being offered in that election that could be able to liberate the people of Kenya. And yet I could not support William Ruto, so I decided to stay quiet. Killing of democracy means there is no opposition to hold the president to account. Why? You buy MPs, you buy political parties, you use money and power and influence. And in fact, Azimio la Umoja had the majority of MPs. But this man bulldozed his way unconstitutionally, bought parliament, and forced a majority government. That is when Ruto became a thug. The moment he took over the National Assembly by force, and then I decided at that point, we are dealing here with a monster. To begin at Article 1 of the Constitution, that all sovereignty rests with the people. And through the delegated authority of the people, a republic forms a government. The reason Article 1 of the Constitution is the beginning, it is where political authority begins or rests. Now, Kenya being a multi-party democracy, it means as well that political parties are created as vehicles to capture the sovereignty of the people in a delegated manner through general elections. Now, what the problem of Kenya has been before the 2010 Constitution, when Kenya was a one-party, the jure one-party state under KANU, was that the multi-party democracy or competitive politics was barred by law. So the question and the debate discussion today, the bar is whether or not the 2010 Constitution has succeeded in improving how the delegated authority of the people is handled, and whether in that exercise, parties and leaders are doing the country any better or worse. Now, just quickly to the 90s, when the multi-party was new, the first phase was actually to entrench more and more, because so many parties were registered, multiple parties, so that there were 10, 20 parties competing. And of the main ones, they all divided the main vote, including even within regions. So you are DP competing with Ford Asili of Kenneth Matiba. And you had Wamalwa Kijana running on Ford K, and those were 3 Fords. And so on and so on. And Moi won with 34% of the vote because the parties were never able to come together. And that continued up to 2002 when the Rainbow Alliance or movement was formed, if you want to call it the first coalition. But in that government, a lot of people felt that Mwai Kibaki, good as he was, as a president in terms of historical terms, the leadership or political conduct of the NAC government left many in that coalition feeling unhappy. So many other issues were brought up towards the 2010 Constitution. And after that, the Political Parties Act was amended to bring up pre-election coalitions and post-coalition election coalitions. Has the country gained at all from these pre-election coalitions that are meant to be deposited at the political party registrar so that people are aware of what they are voting for? I argue to this forum that that has not been the case. That the makeup of both the Azimio la Umoja and of the Kenya Kwanza coalition have been changed and altered against the democratic exercise of the people of Kenya in the general election of 2022. So that today we are dealing with a post situation that in my view is unconstitutional, illegal, null and void ab initio. And what the issue will now be is whether or not there is any ability of the political class to be allowed to safeguard themselves. Because in the conduct of the political parties as they are now, they become parties that are not exercising the manifestos or the delegation of authority given to them by the people, but they are unilaterally conducting themselves for the sake of power and power alone. And because I do not want to take a very long time to speak, I want to bring up the issue that has just been brought up, for example, the AUC. Why am I raising this issue? I'm raising it because as long as there is no constitutional mechanism to regulate how these leaders and how these parties conduct themselves, then what we are basically doing is deceiving the electorate every time we have a general election. And I can tell you that the parties, as have gone on, they have become led by the leader. I think Kagwanja said ODM has been the longest of Raila. But I want to tell Kagwanja respectively, that's because the leader is 84 years old. I mean, if you have been in politics as long as Raila, it would not be an accident that you have the oldest political party. It's not because he's the best politician or the most able, as ODM would like us to believe. It is because he's the oldest by far. And I raise that because when I say oldest, I mean, many years back. You can look at the age of our leaders by the time they bow out. The age of Mwai Kibaki when he bowed out and left the presidency. The age of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. The age of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And so I want to say that in Africa, the succession of, and particularly in Kenya, the succession within political parties sometimes depends on the life of the party leader and how long he lives or does not live. Because even in Wamalwa Kijana, the changes in his party began only when he passed away. So I am saying that it is so individualized that once a political party has a political leader, it has no space for the people in between. My last comment about the issue tonight, so that I can leave the space for everybody else, is whether this realignment that the political class is imagining, both I saw that at the Martha Karua launch, and I also see it in the rearrangement of Kenya Kwanza. I want to argue that maybe the next election of 2027, if my reading of the ground is correct, if my reading of the Gen Z is correct, this is going to be a rude shock and a rude awakening. There is going to be a rebellion against the status quo. It may not be entirely across the length and the breadth of all the politics, presidency, governor, but there will be a major element, percentage of change and surprises from the MCA all the way up to all the other seats up to the presidency. I believe there is going to be a shakeup that is going to go beyond the party, beyond the party leader, and it might begin to test the 2010 constitution in a better way and for the benefit of all other Kenyans. I did not participate in the last general election by choice because other than the BBI marriage that was crafted by Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, there was nothing that was being offered in that election that could be able to liberate the people of Kenya. And yet I could not support William Ruto, so I decided to stay quiet. Killing of democracy means there is no opposition to hold the president to account. Why? You buy MPs, you buy political parties, you use money and power and influence. And in fact, Azimio la Umoja had the majority of MPs. But this man bulldozed his way unconstitutionally, bought parliament, and forced a majority government. That is when Ruto became a thug. The moment he took over the National Assembly by force, and then I decided at that point, we are dealing here with a monster. And since that time, he has taken the opposition for a ride, and a ride again. He called them to NADCO. There was no intention whatsoever to implement anything of the NADCO, including the IBC. The reason I'm speaking out, and I will continue to do so from this day forward, is because you are completely right. We are at war for our nation. There is nobody that can tell me that Kenyatta and Odinga were not part of the problem. And I say that because I was present when we were doing an audit of the election laws. And it was agreed that Maandamano is being done not for anyone to gain, but for the emancipation of the Kenyan people. But for Baba, all it took for him was to be offered the African Union job, and he betrayed all the people of Kenya because he never believed anybody else could fill the streets.